coming from the Edmonton Oilers, actually through the Nashville Predators in a 3-team deal for the Blue Jackets to get that done. That becomes one of just a couple of moves, and they were right on it again today. But let's just go through these one at a time. Let's start with Mark Letestu and that deal. 4th-round pick is what it took to bring him back to Columbus.
Yeah, really no risk for the Blue Jackets to pick up a guy who can play that center ice position, a right-handed shot, can help on the power play. He's played with Connor McDavid, obviously in Edmonton on the power play. There you can see the details of the trade. Yes, Aberg is the guy that leaves Nashville and goes to Edmonton. And then Mark Letestu, a familiar guy for the Blue Jackets, was here for 4 years before he left, signed as a free agent in Edmonton, his hometown, and then back here. So he's excited, and he should be a good depth guy for the Blue Jackets.
When you talk about Mark Letestu, and you've touched on a little bit of this so far, utility guy. He can do so many different things. He's valuable because he can play on any line. He can play at center. He can play at wing. He can play on the power play. And you mentioned he was a big part of the power play for Edmonton last year when it was a better power play. They've struggled this year. But he can play the point on the power play. He can play the penalty kill. A lot of holes get filled with one guy there.
Yeah, no, and he had a great playoff run last year with the Edmonton Oilers. He's a guy that, exactly, depth, doesn't hurt you, no maintenance off the ice. He's just a pro every step of the way. So just a guy that's familiar, older guy. He's got depth. He's a free agent at the end of the year. So it doesn't hurt them in any way to pick up Letestu.
You talk about voices in the dressing room, and he is a quiet guy. He doesn't talk a lot. He does a lot of his leading by his actions. But the fact that he is a guy that, he'll play predominantly 3rd and 4th line, but he is still effective in games. How much does that speak in volumes without saying a word?
Well, yeah, he's a guy that is exactly how the coach wants. And if you ask Todd Richards, he really didn't want to see this guy leave the locker room, because he was kind of like the teacher's pet in the sense of Todd knew that he could rely on this guy on defensive zone faceoff, details of the game done right. He carried those things that Todd wanted done. And now here for Torts, he's got to figure out Torts. He's got to figure out Torts' system, and that shouldn't take long for a guy that, well, there's 3 or 4 guys here that he played with when he was a Blue Jacket a long time ago, or just 3 or 4 years ago. So, there's guys that he's familiar with, and like I said, this is it seems to be like a healthy pickup.
Yeah, it does. And even though John Tortorella is the coach now, not Todd Richards, Brad Larson was an assistant coach when Mark Letestu was here and running the power play. So for a guy that's expected to do some work on the power play, it's good to know who the power play coach is, right?
Yeah, and I wouldn't call him a power – like when you think of Letestu, you don't think of a power play guy. I just think all-around reliable. I mean, there is a guy that needs to be out there on the power play that can make guys a little just feel like they can take a little more risk when he's on the ice, and he's that guy. Like, he's a 4th-line player that can play the power play and help out there. So he's not the power play specialist that this team is searching for.
Well, he might be. You never know when it's all said and done. They're hoping that he can be when it's all said and done. One last thing on him. This is a guy that had planned on ending his career and living in Columbus with his family. As a guy that played other places and came back here to now live with your family, how valuable is that to have a guy that is so bought in that he was going to be back here no matter what?
Well, yeah, he loves it here. He's comfortable. That's not a word I like to hear him say, but that he's comfortable here. And he means it in the sense of he's familiar with what the surroundings. Now, he's got to get familiar with what's happening here now. The old Blue Jackets are gone, so it's on him to come in and not bring in the old ways and really be open. I think he is. He's a guy that's so intelligent. He'll come in here and fall in line with the Blue Jackets want to do. So, he likes this area, so that's exciting.
All right, that was yesterday's news. The Blue Jackets made that deal yesterday. Today they were the first team to make a trade in the league, and they did that by picking up Ian Cole from the Ottawa Senators. You might remember that Ian Cole just a couple of days ago was traded from the Pittsburgh Penguins to the Senators in that deal for Derek Brassard. Ottawa called and said, just hang out in Pittsburgh because we're not even going to keep you. We're going to flip you to somebody. There was a lot of speculation who that might be. Yeah. Philadelphia was mentioned a little bit in maybe a destination for him, but Ian Cole winds up coming here to the Blue Jackets. Here's a guy that has just won back-to-back Stanley Cups. He's a physical defenseman on the blue line and somebody that should be able to provide some pop.
Yeah, exactly. He plays one way. He plays hard. He's a penalty killer. He's a shot blocker. He's a guy that's won Those are all good things. Veteran presence. Think about it, in just these two guys. The Blue Jackets have gotten a lot older, quick, and that's not a bad thing at this time of year. Veteran presence might be something they're lacking. Well, this guy comes in with a fresh opportunity, a team he's familiar with in the Columbus Blue Jackets and the way they've played against the Pittsburgh Penguins head-to-head the past couple of seasons. He's been a big part of that organization. Fell out this year with the head coach and wasn't playing a lot, but that happens over time. So he's a guy that's looking for a fresh start, as I said. So he comes here to the Columbus Blue Jackets. I like the way it is. It's depth. You know, there's guys on the Blue Jackets blue line that have been struggling. Maybe they're banged up. Torts keeps saying there's guys banged up. You can never have too many big, solid, gritty defensemen, especially going into the playoffs and down the stretch here, that just go out there like machines and get it done the right way. So that's what he brings here to this organization. I like this pickup by the Columbus Blue Jackets.
And again, it's not an expensive pickup, quite frankly. This is one, there you see what the Blue Jackets had to give up. They give up Nick Moutre, who was playing in Cleveland, and a third-round pick in 2020. There were a lot of people that were saying it was going to take a second-round pick to get Ian Cole out of Ottawa. As it turns out, they're able to go with a third-round pick and a player. And for Nick Moutre, this is an opportunity for him to go to another organization that's obviously looking to retool and get a chance to maybe be a part of that.
Yeah, he's a nice forward. I like Nick. He works hard. He's a guy that didn't really get any kind of crack here in Columbus, and that's just the way it works out sometimes in your pro career. So you wish him luck. But, yeah, Cole is a guy early this morning when the trade deadline shows started. He was the first one off the board. And I like the way the Blue Jackets did him and haw on this. You know, you don't want to have Jack Johnson to leave and then wonder, okay, now we go get a guy. Because Jack was rumored to leave. Jump on Ian Cole. He's a guy that can bring you a number of different things to the lineup, to the organization. And it's someone Jarmo drafted back in St. Louis and is very familiar with. John Davidson, too, was part of that organization when Ian Cole was a part of it. So there's a lot of positives here. Familiarity is a common theme with both of these two guys. Of course, Letestu being here before, and now Ian Cole being a part of an organization that management was part of here for hockey operations. So it's not a bad thing. You know, there's a lot of research that needs to be done on players, and sometimes there's an adjustment period with players, especially when they get to new surroundings. Hopefully these guys, and I go back to Ian Cole playing for Coach Sullivan in Pittsburgh, well, he's very familiar with the style of John Tortorella. So those two things, hopefully that's an easy transition for Cole as he gets here to Columbus.
Yes, and a guy that played against the Blue Jackets in last year's playoffs, he was instrumental. Yeah. If you remember those playoffs, Chris Letang was out, and there was a lot of question from the fan base in Pittsburgh and really from the outside. We had hoped that that might be a weakness for them. One of the reasons it wasn't a weakness to be without Chris Letang, even though he's a completely different style of a player, Ian Cole was able to help fill that hole.
Yeah, and you forget about him because, you know, there's a lot of names in Pittsburgh. But those guys in Pittsburgh, the guys in the locker room, the guys on the bench, really appreciated how this guy played the game. And he helped them win a Stanley Cup. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of players that get in the lineup and they try to help when they think they're helping. But this guy did a lot of dirty work. All series, every series for the Pittsburgh Penguins, like as you mentioned, not only last year, the year before. So it's a big piece. It's a nice piece. He doesn't have far to travel. Apparently he's driving on 70 West here to get here today. Maybe join the Blue Jackets tonight.
Yeah, and it's not dusk, so there won't be any deer. That's a good thing. Do it in the middle of the day.
And it's sunny.
That's right. It is, which is a change from the last couple of days. So the Blue Jackets then make another trade right before the 3 o'clock deadline. Thomas Vanek is a guy that's been in the league for a long time. Some say he kind of reinvented himself into being almost a 20-goal scorer again this year. Well, he was in Vancouver. The day goes by. All day goes along without Thomas Vanek moving, and then it's announced right around 3 o'clock that the Blue Jackets acquired Thomas Vanek. And in exchange, Tyler Mott and Jussi Jokinen. When I look at this trade, Jody, again, this to me looks like nothing but upside. Vanek is a guy that can score. If he continues to score, this is a great move. The guys on the right-hand side of the screen there, Tyler Mott and Jussi Jokinen, let's be honest about it. They both had their opportunities here. They couldn't stay in the lineup. They had a chance to be fourth liners. Tyler Mott, he had a really good opportunity to be on this team and stay on this team. It didn't work. He wound up back in Cleveland. Jokinen, after being picked up on waivers, just wasn't fast enough to hang with the system here. So, again, this looks to be a low-cost deal.
It does. And Vanek, as you mentioned, he's a left winger. He's 34 years old. So, again, the age bracket of the Columbus Blue Jackets, the average goes up quite a bit here. in the past 24 hours, and I don't mind that. And as you mentioned, you're talking about a team in Columbus here who's having trouble scoring. Now, Vanek, this is his 8th team in the last 6 years, so he's bounced around quite a bit. Hopefully he sees this trade deadline refresher for him and comes in and makes an impact on a young team. You know, he's a guy that has been in the league a long time. He's been in the professional ranks for a long time. And why not? Pick him up, give him a shot. If he can put the puck in the net, maybe get Wenberg playing a little more offense. Boone Jenner ignited. You know, a few of these players, maybe Josh Anderson, keep him going and maybe give him a boost. You never know where he fits in. That'll be up to the coaching staff here. They got a few games to figure this out and try to get it on a roll. And it's players like this that come in, get re-energized, get rejuvenated this time of year, be a part of something special. You know, he's coming from Vancouver where things weren't really going great. They had a good part of the season, but things have really fallen off. Now he's got a chance at helping a team get in and do some damage. So I think these guys that we've just talked about are excited about an opportunity here in Columbus.
And I was listening to NHL radio earlier today on the way in. They were talking about Thomas Vanek in particular, and you talked about all the teams he's been with. They said at times at points in his career that he hasn't been the consummate teammate. But now, as you said, he's 34 years old. It's worked out very well with the Vancouver Canucks for him. He's worked out well with the team. He's putting up his points. And as you get older, well, things change and the focus changes. And now you're going from a team that's not in the playoffs in Vancouver, and you're coming here with a chance to get into the postseason. That's what everybody wants.
Yeah, you're supposed to get wiser, right, Bob,
right,
when you get
exactly.
older? I played with Jarmo Kekalainen in Philly, and it was interesting because he had just come back from the KHL, and he left the National Hockey League, and it was kind of a bad taste in his mouth and the team they left, the New York Rangers. There were some things said about him. He came back, and he admitted his level of appreciation to be in the National Hockey League was higher than it had ever been in his life. And you could see it in the way he worked and how he put the effort in, and he just wanted to win one more Stanley Cup. He already had 2. So it's interesting to see these older guys at the end of their career, or what some people think is the end of their career. Who knows how long Vanek can play, or any of these guys we're talking about. But as soon as you hear that conversation, or you realize it's going to be another short spring as a professional hockey player later in your career, you don't want to hear that. He's got an opportunity here, like you said, to come in and do something special and maybe hopefully appreciate where he's at.
Yeah, so those are the moves that the Blue Jackets have made before the NHL trade deadline ended at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So, again, if you put it all on the table, they pick up 3 players, and they do so for a 4th-round pick, a 3rd-round pick, Nick Mutry, along with Tyler Mott and Jussi Jokinen. So, again, on the surface, it looks like Jarmo Kekalainen did a good job to try to strengthen his club. One thing he was able to do was stay away from some of those prospects that he has, and he's been very adamant in saying in the last couple of days, this is not about right now, this is about for now and for the future. He didn't want to deal certain pieces of the roster here. He didn't want to deal certain prospects in the system, and Jody, it looks like for the most part he didn't have to.
Yeah, and you know, that's the key here, because there's a lot of organizations and a lot of talk out there, and there's some impatience in some of the fan bases and maybe some of the crowds, but you haven't seen it from a lot of these teams, and especially the Blue Jackets. It's important that they understand that they're building. This is something that's taken a few years to get to where we're at with Werenski and Jones and a great nucleus and a goaltender in Bobrovsky. Those players appreciate knowing that, hey, there's just a few players coming in, but there's not a lot of guys leaving. And that's a good message to the team and the organization. Now, the interesting one is Jack Johnson, and as of the start of the show, he'd not been moved. I'm hearing he's not going to get moved. He's a guy that asked for the trade. Now they've got extra D here. There's some interesting things here. Chorney's going to play, it sounds like, tonight. Coming into this game, he was going to. Maybe things change here with the addition of Ian Cole, but who is in now? They've got a lot of proven NHL defensemen in this organization, and I think that's what some teams really lack. You talk about prospects. Proven NHL players. I mean, and you talk about it all the time. There's in baseball, it's AAA and the big leagues, and then there's the 4A players. The players that are cut in between the minors and the majors. Well, you've picked up a couple guys here that are ready and proven in the majors. So now, what does that do for competition in that locker room, and who's going to be the chosen ones?
Right, and Marcus Nudavara, remember, he got hurt about a week or so ago. He hasn't been in the lineup. Dean Kukan gets hurt. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. Even with Ryan Murray coming back, there are still some holes back there. So Taylor Chorney being picked up off waivers from the Washington Capitals. Now Ian Cole. I mean, it is going to be a competition. Just think, even tonight, what you're looking at, what you could possibly put in the lineup on the blue line. You could probably dress 7 defensemen tonight if you wanted to, and you'd be fine back there. But you'd be really good back there, as a matter of fact. But, yeah, that sense of competition, I think, will be good for everybody.
And listen, let's be honest. Zach Werenski has not looked like himself the past month and a half. And that's a concern, and that's something that is led to the dip of goals here for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So if he's not playing at his top level, you can knock him down a few minutes. Maybe split up Jones and Werenski. Maybe it's time to do that. Put one with a veteran Cole and see what happens. Split them up because when teams play against the Blue Jackets, they're really focusing on 4 guys: Bobrovsky, Werenski, Jones, and then Panarin. Those are the superstars of this team. Those are the ones you have to go after. And if you're a defenseman that's not feeling your game, or you're not feeling on top of your game, and they're always attacking you and take away time and space, if you're not 100% or up in that top percentage of health, you need to be knocked down a few minutes, spread them out a little bit, and then that takes a little pressure off those guys. Then they're able to find those holes and play in those minutes.
That's a really good point, and especially right now where there is very little margin for error over the course of these last 20 games. So whatever you can do, if you've got to give somebody a break, yeah, you're right. This gives them a great opportunity to do that.
And goes back to the NHL-ready players. Not only NHL-ready, but pedigree that is shown and proven. I know Vanek has some good playoff experience, over 60 games, but the key is Cole with those winning ways. And Letestu, let's be honest, he's played in the playoffs. He's played under pressure. He's played in Canada, where everything is under a lot of scrutiny. So I'm sure he's more than excited. We know he's more than excited to be back with this organization. So these are they don't seem like huge, massive moves, but they're very nice moves that complement this roster. And as you mentioned, without taking anything away.
Right. And there were some big guys out there on the trade market. Some of them went, some of them didn't, but the prices were extremely steep for some of those players. Look what the Boston Bruins paid for Rick Nash as a rental player to leave the New York Rangers and go there, because they're going for it. They think that they can win it, and they decided to pay that price. What Pittsburgh paid to get Derek Brassard out of Ottawa was a pretty steep price. And there were still some big names left today on trade deadline day, and the biggest one, actually the biggest name in November, wound up not being the biggest name by the time the trade deadline rolled around, but he was still available today, and he finally went somewhere, and that is Evander Kane from the Buffalo Sabres. You remember months ago, the Sabres were talking about they would have to get this huge return in order to trade Evander Kane somewhere. They didn't do it at that time. They finally did it today, but they sent him to the San Jose Sharks, and they did it for just a couple of picks, a conditional 2019 first-round pick and a conditional 2020 fourth-round pick, and Dan O'Regan, who had been playing in the American Hockey League with the San Jose Barracuda. Now, that conditional first-round pick, from what I understand, is if they re-sign Evander Kane, who is a free agent at the end of the year, if San Jose re-signs him, that's a first-round pick. If he walks, that becomes a second-round pick. So when you look at it that way, it's an even better deal for San Jose.
Yeah, I mean, and I heard Jason Botterill was under attack for this because he should have got more for Kane. But Kane is an unrestricted free agent. This is an interesting situation for Botterill because, and apparently this was the best it could get, was a conditional first all throughout this whole talk since November, you mentioned, maybe even back to last year. So nothing improved as time went on. He took what he could get. He had to get something for this player. And when you think about what they're trying to do in Buffalo, it's a culture change. They're at the bottom of the barrel again. Unacceptable. New GM. I think this is his first big deal, and he has to do what he sees right. So I think this is addition by subtraction in a room that's looking for a culture change in Buffalo. Kane is a great player. He's electric, but he's run the course there. He's had some off-ice issues, which are now behind him. That's fine. But he's going to a strong locker room. That San Jose Sharks locker room, with Joe Thornton in the room and some good veteran players there, there's a presence that Evander Kane has got to fall in line for the next couple months and try to help that team win. So good speed, good pickup, and if that's all Botterill could get, that's fine. He had to take what he could get and move forward, but I think it's addition by subtraction.
All right, here's another big trade that was made today. It involves the St. Louis Blues, who have been in free fall over the course of the last couple of weeks. They've gone from a guaranteed playoff spot to being 1 point out of the playoffs. And today they sent Paul Stastny, who is an unrestricted free agent this summer, they sent him actually within the division to the Winnipeg Jets, and they got a good haul for him, as a matter of fact. They get a first-round pick this summer. They get forward Eric Foley, and they also get a conditional fourth-round pick in 2020. This was a bit of a surprise because Paul Stastny's name wasn't really thrown around out there, but the Winnipeg Jets, they wanted to get you didn't hear a lot about him as other guys, but they wanted to get stronger down the middle and make a good playoff push.
Well, that's a huge pickup for the Jets. I mean, Stastny's a veteran player, a great player, hard to play against, plays that center ice position, and I thought he was a great fit with the St. Louis Blues. But here he goes to Winnipeg, and I was thinking as this happened right around the deadline that St. Louis wasn't done. And I'm not sure if they've picked anything up since. I guess they haven't. But that's a big play for St. Louis, who I thought he was a big part of their core and their success this year. You know, you go on a bit of a slide, that's one thing. But is this a reaction? Are they trying to just shake things up? Or is it just deciding that, hey, this guy's expendable, other players have to step up, message to the locker room, and they get some prospects for him?
Yeah, there was a lot of speculation that maybe that first-round pick would be flipped for something else to give them immediate help, but it doesn't seem like that happened, and they decided to hang on to it. And then also right at the deadline this afternoon, another big trade was made. Here's a guy that's been talked about for days on end. That is Ryan McDonagh of the New York Rangers. They did deal him. They sent him to the Tampa Bay Lightning. He went there along with J.T. Miller, and look what's coming back to the Rangers. Vladislav Namestnikov is coming back from Tampa, and then they had a great bunch of young players in the American Hockey League, and two of those players are going back the other way, Brett Howden and Libor Hayek.
Yeah, and it's not. You mentioned that Syracuse is stacked for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I guess these two prospects are a big deal. You see at the bottom there, they also got a first and a conditional second. McDonagh, the captain of the New York Rangers, and Miller, one of their bright prospects in future. He's had a nice little career just starting with the Rangers. So big haul for the Lightning. I cannot believe Namestnikov. I love the way he fit in on that top line or on that top six for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But again, they see that there's been a little bit of a slide. They're tinkering with a few things. They still got some weapons. I love Ryan McDonagh. I think he's just a solid defenseman, gets it done every night. He's a guy that might go a little unappreciated in New York in their situation right now. Frustrating for him. And Miller, he's a guy that can kill penalties. He's effective in the offensive zone. He's a big body. So I look at this as, okay, perfect for either fit. You got a team in Tampa that's pushing for the Stanley Cup. They had a couple veterans, and that McDonagh on the back end is huge. They've got some decisions there. And then how about the Namestnikov and the prospects for a team that's announced with a letter saying to their fans, saying we are going to rebuild? Well, there's some pretty good pieces to build around.
Absolutely. And for Steve Yzerman, the general manager of the Tampa Bay Lightning, he had said that he didn't want to let go of any of his good, promising young players. He was going to deal in draft picks and prospects. For the most part, that's what he did. If you would have had to let a Braden Point go to the New York Rangers, he wouldn't have done it, and he didn't have to.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's and you know, you got to think about that. Those are players that aren't as fancy or as skilled as Namestnikov. But Braden Point is such high value and has really come off out of nowhere this year as far as the outsiders are concerned, like us. But he's an impact guy in that organization.
So the Tampa Bay Lightning looking to strengthen themselves so that they can stay ahead of the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins beefing up so that they can try to catch up with the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's what it's about at this time of the year. Toronto,
all those teams are trying to push.
Yeah, but there were some other big names out there that didn't go anywhere. Erik Karlsson being one of them. There was a lot of speculation, although there was that caveat that, well, if he doesn't go at the trade deadline, he could go this summer. He has another year left on his deal. Tampa was one of the teams that was supposed to be hot and heavy into that. They end up going with Ryan McDonagh instead. I don't think that, I mean, that's a win-win either way, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the talk was get Karlsson now. You get him for 2 playoff runs, but no, he's going to stay in Ottawa. Smart play by Ottawa. You're going to get way more for him in the offseason if he is going to be traded, which he probably will. Doesn't seem like he's going to resign in Ottawa. You're going to have more teams come to the table. Teams are going to have more cap space. There's just more likeliness of getting that huge haul that they want to get. They have to get. I mean, he's a generational player. And you can pick up a Karlsson in a draft, wow, you are a lucky person. He is hitting the prime. And also that foot, where does it end up? He's had foot problems. He had Achilles surgery a couple years ago. See where that is in the offseason. So that's a good move by Ottawa. Did you have a favorite trade today? I thought the Stastny one was a good haul by the Jets. The Jets are rolling up there, and to get a veteran like that, I think that's an excellent play by them. But the most exciting one was the last one. I think the Rangers and the Lightning, because the Lightning have been such a great story this season. We've seen them a couple times. They're rolling right along. They're bold to take away Nemesnikov and a couple prospects, as you mentioned, to say, hey, we're going to make this move and go for it. And in that Central Division, by the way, Winnipeg, yeah, they're going for it. In fact, they are all, and just listening to things all day long, they're licking their chops up there. They're saying, man, we've got so many centermen now, we might have to have centers play the wing. And they do have a lot of guys that are very interchangeable up there, which is to their credit. But they're still in a battle to catch up with the Nashville Predators. Yeah. And they made a move today, too. Ryan Hartman comes over from the Chicago Blackhawks. They gave up a first-round pick for him. Now, this guy is a bottom six, in-your-face kind of a centerman. And we just saw him here the other night when the Blue Jackets played against the Chicago Blackhawks. But again, I think it's typical David Poile of the Nashville Predators. He's finding little moves that he can make. It's not costing him a ton, although first-round pick could be considered a ton. But he hopes that's going to be a 30th or 31st overall pick, quite frankly, if he can get back to the Stanley Cup final. But he just tweaks it enough. And then you add Mike Fisher, who was officially announced today that he is back, and they give him his contract. So he's added a couple of players there to try to get back to where they were last year. Yeah, he makes those moves that just quietly, and they're character moves. Hartman, I like Hartman. He's a guy that's been to college. I think it was at Yale. He's an intellect. We've seen him throw the punches a couple times this season. He's done well. We met him. He's a bright guy, and I think he fits in very well with these Predators who, as you said, those little tweaks, that Mike Fisher move, who knows how that's going to turn out, but it brings a new kind of spirit to that locker room that's already feeling really good about itself. Yeah, a locker room that feels that they can get back to the Stanley Cup final, and with those moves, I'm sure they feel even better about it today. Jarmo Kekalainen, the Blue Jackets general manager, is going to be speaking. He'll address the media, and we will have that for you live here in just a moment. And again, to me, on paper, it is a very good day for him today. The guys that he got are unrestricted free agents. You can decide once the season's over, whenever that may be, are you going to offer this guy to stay? Are you going to let him walk? At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, because you didn't pay a ton to have to get these guys. So now the next step, as you said, will be getting them in the lineup. One thing we don't know is if Mark Letestu is going to be able to play tonight or not, because of immigration issues. When you come back in from Canada, you have to go through that. Yeah, I would bet not. I would bet not. It usually takes at least 48 hours to 72 hours. Derek Brassard hasn't played for Pittsburgh yet. Yeah. They're hoping he can play tonight or maybe in their next game. Vanek is coming from Canada, right? Yes, so that's another one we'll probably see out west. The good thing about that is after today, the Blue Jackets don't play again until Thursday. Maybe that'll be enough time to get him through the process in Los Angeles. And I like Cole. I mean, Cole has played for the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are the team you have to go through in the Metropolitan Division. So, there's a little bit there that, I don't know, there's no real heavy cost here for the Blue Jackets. Jarmo does it the right way here. And in the room, I'll tell you, as a player, it's exciting to get new players at the deadline. Sometimes we say, oh, the best moves are the ones you don't make. And there is a fact in there, too, because when this deadline passes, and these guys will be in the room here in a half hour or so, it's nice to know that this is the team. Boone, we saw your name out there. You didn't go anywhere. That's nice to know. All day his Calvert, picture was on. Yeah, it's good. You get a little laugh about it. And then tonight, this is the start of the last section of the season. We talk about All-Star break, Christmas, Thanksgiving. Trade deadline is the last part of the season. The segment now is the push to the end. Teams have made their moves. There's been a buzz around the league about what's going on. The players are all talking about it. But tonight when the puck drops, there's a great feeling in the organization. And there's other pieces and veterans coming on a young team. I think that's good for all those guys in the room. Let's talk about the team the Blue Jackets are playing tonight, the Washington Capitals, because they were rumored to be in on Mike Green, who used to play for them and now is in Detroit. He's having a very good year. They ended up not making that move. And in fact, they were fairly quiet, as a matter of fact, so throughout this whole process. Silent, were they? Yeah, actually they were silent the whole time. So
there they are. That's their team. What they've had is their team. Now, their team's been good enough to be atop the Metropolitan Division here for the last couple of weeks, even though they've got two teams breathing down their necks right now. But, they decided to stand pat. So they're that team that stood pat, and this team on the other side added some new blood.
I think they learned their lesson. They've tried in the past to add. Shattenkirk was a guy that was there, and he did a good job, but it was like, what happens after this? They've got their team. I think on the other side of it, when you have a team like that that's got they've already got veteran superstars. They've got players that have been through the ringer and been extremely disappointed. Go back just last season. So there's something there that they're going to bank on. Have they been totally healthy? I don't know if they've been totally healthy all season, but they've got pieces that have something to prove in the playoffs. And when you're in that situation, I think it's all right to stand pat. Why not? Stand pat. You guys are the guys. We've found our roles. They're going to push and see what happens. But for a team like Columbus, who's young, had trouble scoring, I like the way they stepped up and went out and got some players outside the organization.
If you don't get all of those players in, is it different as every guy comes into the lineup? Let's say Ian Cole plays tonight.
Yeah,
obviously
it will
that's
be
different.
gradual, yeah.
Will it be different when Letestu's able to come in, and then when Vanek eventually comes in?
Yeah, I think it is. It's a shot in the arm each and every situation, and I think that's something they'll look to.
All right, Jarmo Kekalainen is stepping to the podium in the media room, so let's go to him live as he holds his press conference post NHL Trade Deadline.
Who's up first? Jarmo, how pleased are you to add some pieces that can help you at least through the stretch run without affecting your today roster at all? Was that one of your goals heading into this thing?
Yeah, I think it was. We want to give our team the best possible chance to make the playoffs. As we've said, that's the goal. That will be the goal, and I think adding the veterans that we added today and yesterday will give us a better chance. Some experience, some experience from winning in 2 Stanley Cups with Ian Cole. We know what Mark Letestu is all about, and we've talked about scoring and special teams all year. Thomas Vanek's probably one of the best power play players that in the league, and a consistent goal scorer, and can add some offense to our team.
Jarmo, you feel like at this time of year down the stretch and maybe into the playoffs, you can't have enough defensemen because you've certainly got a pretty crowded blue line when everyone's healthy, as far as keeping Jack and then bringing in Cole in?
Yeah, we have some question marks on the health. Obviously, that's a big factor there. Dean Kukan's going to be out for a while. Marcus Nutivara is taking a little bit longer than we expected, and it's not clear exactly how long it'll take. So those are two big question marks as far as what their timetable is. So when you take the two of those out, it's not as crowded as it may look if and when they're healthy. And as you said, you never have too many defensemen. I think we're in great shape there. We made our defense stronger, deeper, and that's going to be important down the stretch.
You added 2 forwards, you added some defense, you kept Jack. Do you feel like you have improved this team and have really a better team now than you were 48 hours ago?
Yeah, we think so. We strongly think that we like our team right now, the way it's shaped up, what we added. I think it gives us, and Mark Letestu gives us a solid two-way defensive veteran center. We can take some face-offs and play on PK and some power play. Thomas Vanek, as I said, adds some scoring and good power play ability, a right-handed shot, 2 right-handed shots. And then Ian Cole gives us another defenseman that knows what it's like to play the games under pressure when it counts the most. He's won 2 Stanley Cups with Pittsburgh, and we know him very well. I've known him since he was a 17-year-old kid getting ready for the draft. So we feel that we know him, know what we got there, and he'll be a good player for us.
What was the situation with Jack Johnson? Did you just decide to keep him, or were the offers just not what you thought was better value keeping him than what you could have gotten for him? Or what?
Well, when the trade requests went public, I said, and I've said that consistently after, that we would only trade Jack Johnson, who will be a UFA July 1, if it made a lot of sense for the future of the organization, and if not, we would rent them to ourselves, as so to speak. for the rest of the year, and it's still a possibility that he'd want to stay here. Who knows? And I mean, that's something that we'll have to make a decision on, but that's in the future sometime, and we'll see where that goes. But Jack's been a big part of our team, and he's going to be a big part of our team if we were going to make the playoffs.
Over here, when you looked around the league and saw the going prices for other players that went to other places, first round pick, how happy were you to be able to do what you did and not have to give up a first round pick?
Yeah, I guess we were out of that competition because we kind of established our position right from the start. We don't want to give up a first round pick because we did that last year with the trade Vegas, and we don't want to put that hole 2 years in a row into our depth chart. I can already feel the effects of the 1 year hole. I would definitely not want to feel the effects of a 2 year hole there in the depth chart. So that was sort of a non-starter with us. So we were out of those battles right from the start.
As a manager, when you see the Penguins and you see the Flyers and you see the Devils loading up, does that put pressure on you to maybe strengthen your team? Do you pay attention to what other teams are doing at this time of year?
Yeah, I'm not sure if all those teams that you mentioned loaded up, so to speak, but we're battling for a playoff spot. We're concentrating on the game tonight. 2 points available from the game tonight, and then we go on a trip out west, and there's 6 points available from those games. We go one game at a time, and as I've said before, that it's going to take around, I don't know, now that teams are kind of playing against each other and cross, and it seems like it could be even less than the 93, 94 points that I projected a little while ago that will make or give you enough points to make the playoffs. Could be 91, 92, but I think to be sure you have to be around 93, 94. So that's our focus, is to get enough points to make the playoffs, and then we'll see who we get to play.
Jarmo, on Mark, do we know about his immigration issues yet? Is he available to play
No, we don't know that yet. We're supposed to find out in the next hour or so. We are hoping.
Do you know, does Ian Cole draw in tonight?
I don't know if Torts is. Yeah, I think he will. Torts can talk about that if he's going to. I think he'll be here at the rink any time now, because he was in Pittsburgh. He never went to Ottawa, so because he knew this was most likely going to happen, where he's going to move along. So I talked to him, and he was in Pittsburgh. He was going to drive in.
And Vanek is in Denver. Is he just going to meet you out in California?
He's going to meet us in California. There's no chance he could get here.
Obviously, like you said, you drafted Cole. You've watched him play. Specifically, what do you like about his game, other than the experience and having a couple rings?
He's a competitive defenseman. He can play an aggressive game in your face. He's very strong. He's built like Jack Johnson, if you want to get a comparable of how he's built. Very strong guy, good in front of the net, keeps the game simple, moves the puck well. But he's not a guy that's going to score a lot of points, But he's a good defender, and that's what we were looking for. And he'll bring that competitive edge in front of our net and into the locker room.
Just a little more on Vanek. Obviously, a guy that can score. He's played well, other than Minnesota, everywhere he's been for the most part of his career. Just what does he add other than power play, and where do you see him? Do you see him top six with you guys?
Well, that's up to Torts where he wants to put him in the lineup. But again, right-handed shot. He's always been a consistent scorer. It's not just a goal scorer. He can pass the puck too. He's got 41 points this year. He's got 17 goals. With Vancouver team, I think he's their second leading scorer after Brock Besser, who's having a great year for them. So he scored everywhere he's gone. We expect him to do that with us too. He's going to get an opportunity to play in that role. That's what we got him for, but it's up to Torts to decide what his role is and who he's playing with and so forth.
You mentioned the other day that general managers stay in contact, pretty frequently throughout the season, so you kind of know what's going on. What you were able to accomplish in the last week or so, did that all kind of go the way you thought it was going to go a while back? I mean, did you plan it this way kind of thing, or did some of this stuff happen?
No, there's always going to be surprises, and then there are teams that you think you might get a deal done with, and then they go into another direction, and you can't get a deal done with them. And So by you sort of have your lists and maps on okay, well, these are the guys that might be available, and here's how we rank them, and that's the process that you do every day pretty much. But then again, you don't know if a guy is available. You don't know what the price is, so it's sort of hard to rank it because there's so many moving variables there that affect the ranking. You know, it's not just who's a better player. Is he available? What the price is? What the salary? How it fits into our cap? How it fits into our budget? All those things combined. Then you'll have to make your decisions.
Jarmo, I know this might be tough to answer because at the time you traded for Cole, you weren't sure if Jack was going to be here or not. But did you think that element you're talking about of being hard to play against in front of the net, did you think that was a little bit lacking when you watched your team?
No, I don't think so. I think that we have some good defenders on our team. I think defense has been considered a strength of our team. Have all of our defense played their best seasons this year up to date? No. And that goes to some of the forwards. We've talked about it. I think the biggest key, despite the additions to our team, is going to be some of the veteran guys playing to their level that they are capable of. And I think this shows them, too, that we have faith in them, and we think they're going to get back to their level, and they're going to play better, and we'll play better as a team as a result of it. And, I think that Ian Cole is just a great addition to the mix and to the depth chart now. Even with the injuries, or if there's additional injuries, we're going to be 10 defensemen deep if we're all healthy, and that'll be enough for however long we're going to play this spring.
Thank you.
Blue Jackets general manager Jarmo Kekalainen talking about the deals that he was able to pull off the last couple of days, and as Jody said, now this team is set and ready to go to work tonight against Washington.
Yeah, and who knows who's going to be in the lineup. It's up to John Tortorella now. He's back there with 3 new roster players. He's got Chorney that looks like he's going to be in the lineup. But we don't know. That could have changed since they picked up Ian Cole. So this will be an interesting time. I think this will be an interesting night. Washington Capitals, top of the Metro. That team that's, they've had their way a little bit with the Blue Jackets this season. So this will be an exciting game for the Blue Jackets before they head out west.
It sure will. 2 important points on home ice here tonight. The game getting underway at 7 o'clock this evening. I've got it for you on the Blue Jackets Radio Network, and Jody, of course, will have it on Fox Sports Ohio. That'll do it for our NHL Trade Deadline show. For Jody Shelley, I'm Bob McElligott. Thanks for watching Jackets TV.